In today's video, I'm going to be ranking every main GTA game's main protagonist from worst to best. I hope that you enjoy the video, and if you do, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and joining my Discord. Any support is really appreciated. In the last spot, I put Claude Speed from GTA 2. I'm sure a lot of you don't even really know who this is. Now, it has been confirmed whether this is the same Claude that appears in GTA 3, but I think it's pretty safe to assume that it is, just based on his appearance. Nonetheless, I'm counting this as a separate character because, as I said, it hasn't been confirmed if it is actually the same person, and it is a different game. So why is Claude last, you might be wondering? Well, similar to his later appearance in the next title, he is silent, he doesn't speak at all, therefore we know very little about him. The game's style doesn't really help either because the first sort of couple GTA games were a top-down view. We have very little idea of things like, even though we can sort of guess that it is Claude from GTA 3 on the appearance, we only really get that from that top-down view, so we can't really be like sure. And the earlier games had very little story, including sort of like the GTA 3 Vice City. Even though they had stories, it was mainly just mission. There wasn't too much story, especially GTA 3, but overall, especially from even before that era. So overall, he's definitely the weakest GTA protagonist to date, but as it was the first game with sort of one central protagonist, because GTA 1, I believe you could play like multiple characters, I think we can cut him some slack. So this was an interesting one because for a protagonist that doesn't speak, I actually really like Claude. Let's look at the positives first. So being a silent protagonist once again adds mystery to his character. The game being from a third-person perspective now means we can see more of him. His outfit is super clean, and I'm not sure why, but I really like it. But of course, I didn't put him second last for no reason. Although it adds mystery, he still is silent, and I know we would prefer a talking protagonist. His motives are quite weak as well. Every other character has a reason to do what they do, but Claude does everything he does in the game solely to get revenge on his ex-girlfriend Catalina, who betrayed him at the very start of the game during a bank heist. So this seems like a pretty weak motive to commit all the crimes that he does. But one thing I want to mention though, is that Claude is miles ahead of GTA 2's Claude. Again, don't know if this is the same guy, but I would have ranked him higher, but it's definitely unfortunate for him. All the other protagonists in this video can speak. This might be controversial, but Trevor was always my least favourite of the GTA 5 protagonists. This isn't to say he's bad or that he didn't have any good moments, but similar to Claude, he's very aggressive and kills seemingly for no real reason at times, aside from being very clearly unstable. That sort of impacts that. The positives, of course, the voice acting by Stephen Ogg is great. It definitely adds to the character, and he portrays a psycho character very well, which I mean in a positive way. His design is very messy and scrappy looking, which absolutely, fits the character. And while I think his motivations are strange at times, his relationship with Michael was intriguing, and I was always interested to sort of see how their story would end. Now that, of course, does depend on the ending you choose when you're playing as Franklin, but that doesn't matter. The main reason I put him in this spot really is because he's the character that I found the hardest to sort of sympathize with and understand. And while I don't think any GTA protagonist ever has been like me in any way, thankfully, Trevor is definitely the furthest from myself, and I think you can relate to characters more when you see yourself even just a tiny bit in that character. And overall, Trevor is just the furthest from that, at least to me. But I think Trevor is easily the least relatable just due to his morals and his actions, and I hope that that's not just me. I hope you guys are nothing like Trevor. Franklin seems like the modern day take on CJ from San Andreas, which I actually personally really liked. We start GTA 5 playing as Franklin, and he's definitely the protagonist I spent the most time playing as when I was a kid. When I was 18, because I never wanted to do missions, but free roam instead. His story is quite cool as an up-and-comer in the crime world. I liked his relationship with the other two protagonists, and it's clear he was intended to be the main character of GTA 5. As I mentioned before, he decides how the game ultimately ends. A weakness of GTA 5 though, is that I think that the story has a lot of weaknesses and strengths at the same time. I feel there is very little wrong with Franklin as a character, but he comes across as a little bit uninteresting at times, which in a game with someone like Trevor in it, even though I ranked him below Franklin, I feel like he's a very eccentric character, and it can definitely make Franklin feel a little overshadowed. He doesn't have as much story as a character like Michael or any other characters further up this list, which is why I put him in the 5th spot. Speaking of Michael Michael DeSanta, aka Michael Townley, is GTA 5's best protagonist, at least in my opinion. He is arguably the best story in GTA 5 as a person who wants to be done with crime, but ends up getting roped back into it. His attitude and relationship with his family made him very likeable and fun, and it's clear that his voice actor Ned Luke really enjoyed playing him. Why is he above the other two from GTA 5 though? Well, in the case of Trevor and Franklin, they had some glaring issues during the story and were just boring at times, but Michael was always fun to watch, at least in my opinion. His family were always interesting and had some funny stuff going on, all of them basically just sort of hating on him, which made the interactions usually very sarcastic and fun. His house was also a very cool place to explore, and it was always just a fun place to start missions, even a couple missions like the yoga mission taking place in that house. If there was one thing I had to critique him about, it's just sort of his dressing style, which of course you can change, so it's a very minor issue. Very little wrong with this character in my opinion, and definitely sort of solidifies him as the best protagonist in GTA 5. Now finally, before we get into the top 3, I just want to say if you're enjoying the video, thank you for watching this far. Please consider leaving a like and subscribing. And with that being said, let's head into the top 3. Wow, okay, so this is insanely controversial, I know, but hear me out before you dislike the video. This is arguably the biggest and most popular GTA protagonist due to all the San Andreas memes. He's written very well, and the story of him leaving San Andreas, then returning from Liberty City because his mum had passed away, is very sad and makes us sympathize with him basically instantly, especially because his friends constantly make fun of him or just attack him for leaving. He's a great protagonist because us, as the players, can make the character our own by changing his weight, what he eats, his relationship status, and even more. San Andreas' options in the open world make CJ a very worthy contender for the best protagonist in the series, and to many he is. So why didn't I put him at number 1? Well, ultimately, it comes down to personal preference. I have very few negatives to say about CJ. It doesn't affect his spot on this list, but the definitive addition of CJ looks absolutely terrifying. Have you seen him? Oh my god. If I had to give a negative, it would mainly just be his clothing's a little boring, similar to Michael, but again, you can just customize that, so it's not a big deal. But I'm not also a big fan of how his lines are delivered sometimes. Sometimes it was a bit annoying, sometimes it just didn't make sense. I don't know, I'm kind of just nitpicking there, but ultimately great protagonist. Number 2, we're going to be controversial again. Yet another amazing protagonist. Nico used to be my favourite, but even though he slipped down, he's still stayed in the top 3. Similar to CJ, he's quite a sad character that you want to root for. His relationships with the characters that accompany him during the story are always interesting to watch and sort of see how they unfold. The voice acting by Michael Bellic is great and sounds very authentic and matches the character's aesthetic. Speaking of aesthetic, Nico sort of matches the gloominess of Liberty City, which makes him a sort of funner character to follow, and it makes him a character that you sort of want to succeed in sort of such a, lame's the wrong word, but such just a very run-down city. GTA 4 as a whole is a great game, and at the center of that, I would argue, is our main character, Nico, who is arguably the best protagonist in the series and definitely the best of the modern games. But there's one character that beats them all in my opinion, and is easily one of my favorite characters of all time. Tommy is an amazing character and is easily my favorite in the whole series. But where to start with Tommy? The environment that he is in fits him perfectly. Vice City's map, while small by today's standards, is perfect for Tommy and his style. How he dresses is awesome and feels very 80s Miami. My favorite part of his character is the voice acting. The late Ray Liotta did an outstanding job here, and it definitely solidified him as one of my favorite actors of all time. Movies like Goodfellas showed how extensive his range could be, and that definitely shows in this game. Tommy was always fun to root for and play as, especially after buying new businesses. It sort of made you feel powerful and like you were sort of gaining control of the city. Tommy's safe houses, especially Vercetti Estate and the Ocean View Hotel, are very aesthetically pleasing and arguably some of the best GTA locations to date. If I had to give a negative about Tommy, it's just that he's pretty psychotic at times, for seemingly very little reason. In saying this, being in prison for 15 years wouldn't exactly make you the happiest guy, so, I mean, we can't really excuse the killing, but I think we can sort of understand why he wouldn't be the happiest guy. So that's about it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. That is my ranking of the main GTA protagonists. I hope you enjoyed. As previously mentioned, please consider leaving a like and subscribing and joining the Discord. Thank you all for watching and being here, especially if you watch all the way up to the end, and I hope to see you in the next video, and I hope you have a great day.